haircut, you fucking hippie.
Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages.
And we're back.
Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat.
And I'm Mike.
And we're here to pump you up.
Jesus, that is so
Welcome
wrong.
to another exciting week. Today, Nat flirts with disaster, buying Powerball tickets like never before, and Mike ponders the addictive qualities of day trading. Today on RMA, be here or be nowhere.
Is that the new tagline? Be here or be nowhere?
We can't really
Christ.
use it because that's from something else.
Is it?
Yeah, I can't remember what, but I definitely didn't write that.
So we do here. We steal intellectual property and rejigger it for our own ends.
Well, welcome back, and I'd like to remind everyone to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, and now YouTube. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com and tell us your story, which we will read on the show, which nobody seems to be doing.
You know, this was supposed to be our listener question show.
Yeah.
How many listener questions did you get?
I got 0, and I've got my...
Me too. I'm starting to wonder if anyone's listening anymore.
You know, Sergeant Slaughter, our resident alcoholic policeman, who was going to answer addict questions.
A dick
question. And
send us your dick questions.
We really want to do that segment. So please, questions for Sergeant Slaughter. And how was your week?
Well, that's a loaded question. My week was good. It's more religion with the kids and all that shit. And, you know, we had a blizzard, right? But
right.
Wait, we're going to talk about that in a little
we
while.
got snowed in on the East Coast.
It was funny. I sat Ben in front of the computer to do a Zoom religion class on the cardinal virtues and the theological virtues as well. And he seemed like really into it. Like no one has ever taught him morality before, so he's very excited to get some.
He's like, finally, what I've been craving, some direction in life.
I was like, you know, your conscience, that little voice inside of you that tells you right and wrong. He's like, I don't have one of those. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you do. Whoops. You're not a serial killer. You're not a sociopath. I've seen you cry when things get hurt, so you're fine.
You haven't tortured animals with joy.
Yeah.
That's
just with
it's interesting. Listen, I'm not
methodical
against religion.
This we know. Right.
And being a deacon at the Presbyterian Church and all. But I think that's great. And, you know, it says a lot about you, that you have an open mind and, you know, letting them kind of do that for their own purposes. If nothing else, it's a life experience.
Hey, I'm all into it, man. I've been going to church and everything, and it's been wild. I did take Jack to his religion class last night, and that was a little much because they sit there and watch videos of these uber right-wing Catholic people. Like
Cardinal Dolan, is he on that?
No, but it's these creepy looking people like who get up there.
Did you do pre-Cana for marriage?
No, because I did not get married.
You didn't marry.
I'm living in sin.
Yeah, the people at pre-Cana is the religion class you take to get married,
right? And
just getting literally sexual advice from a priest,
right?
With
I know
presumably not a lot of experience, but
well, you never know what goes on in the rectory.
It's very they don't call it a rectory for nothing.
Yeah. Right.
Rectory.
I got it.
Rectory.
Right.
That's
the joke, right?
Poor.
I know, child sex jokes are just not.
Yeah.
They tend to land a little flat.
Delete that.
So, no, absolutely not. But anyway, so I'm watching the video and you know, it's set up like there's a classroom, like there are all these kids who are interested in Catholicism as if this was a thing. And then there's like some crazy guy with like a wandering eye standing up in front and talking about how you parents should really get you baptized when you're an infant because it's their responsibility. And I'm sitting there and looking at Jack, and he's giving me the side eye, and then you know now I feel like I'm a bad parent. You know,
well, I mean,
because they go through the argument, they say, well, some say that you should let the kids make their own decision, but we make all kinds of decisions for our kids. So, and I was like,
not wrong,
fine, yeah.
You know, it's
I'm just predisposed to be cynical about anything involving organized religion, I suppose.
We all know that. That's why it's so impressive that you're going along with this so readily. Maybe you could learn something.
You know, I always keep an open mind, always, because I can always learn something.
But not so open that your brains fall out.
Oh.
You ever hear that one?
Is that an AA?
It is.
Yeah. Right.
I know them all.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, why don't we start with we had that snowstorm, okay?
Yes.
So that's kind of the story for me this week was this snowstorm. Now, I always in the past, when a snowstorm came, I mean, this is perfect boozing and drugging time.
Yeah.
Like, when that happened, I was like, you saw the storm coming, you called your dealer, you got your 8-ball, you got your handle of vodka,
case of wine,
right. Like a carton of Camel Lights, and flip on Netflix. Or I used to just record music, like awful music, for like 48 hours straight.
So just drinking vodka out of the bottle, and
I have some recordings of my 3-day all-nighters from college that are so crazy.
Yeah,
they actually sound good. Like the sound quality is good because I know how to record.
You
but
are all about sound quality.
The music is like amazing. You got to hear it. I'll send it to you after. We'll put it in the show notes.
Will we? That's a big commitment.
That is a big commitment.
I don't know if you want to walk that back. Maybe
we'll walk it back. But it just reminded me of those times, and so the last few snowstorms that we've had, I have not used, and I didn't drink. And this time, we have wine in the house because I'm comfortable with my wife drinking, and I don't like. She'll leave a half open bottle of wine in the kitchen, and 4 years ago that would vanish that night. No questions asked.
Yes.
And she's seen it. It just sits there, because I don't touch it, and frankly, I don't care. And I was just marveling at this new state of mind that I seem to. It's in my subconscious. That's what the thing is. It has, speaking about the subconscious with Annie Grace.
Yes.
I have retrained my subconscious. That's the only way I can describe it. And it's great, man.
It is.
And I had such a great time. And, my family, it's not always, happy-go-lucky. Like, we fight, here and there, but not all the time, certainly. And we just had a nice, chill out. We played Scrabble, taught my little guy to play Scrabble.
Oh, that's nice.
My wife got some reading done. I couldn't get them out in the snow all day, of course.
Yeah.
Which drove me nuts because it looked awesome.
Sideways blowing wind and snow. And
we could go in the backyard
degrees.
just to experience it, Yes. But once the sun went down, I was like, guys, want to do a night, night play. And that got their attention.
Yeah.
So we took the GoPro out there and the kids were jumping off the deck and we were rolling around.
That's great.
And I'm just happy that they did that. And maybe you guys out there, can relate. A hurricane is a bottle of red wine and Scrabble. Power outage.
Right.
That's red wine and Scrabble. You know what I mean? But we've had power outages since I got clean, and
it's just Scrabble.
But I'm not. Here's the point. It doesn't make me mad, jealous.
No.
I don't feel like I'm missing out.
No, not at all.
And,
right.
And thinking back, man, because I've been listening to a lot of addiction memoirs, rereading, re-listening. And we're reading that new book that we're going to have the author on called Suburban Gangsters, which we're muddling through. It's just it's such a different world for me, and I'm only now really conscious of it.
I mean, you see it in things that happen around the snowstorm. Like the other day, it was 5 o'clock, and my 2 younger sons were out. Sorry, my 2 younger sons were out having a snowball fight. So I go outside, and if this had been a couple years ago, 5 o'clock was not snowball fight time. It was time to get the wine out of the fridge and start hitting that. Right. So, but I just kind of moseyed outside and started tossing some, and then we started throwing snowballs up at my older son's room. He has an attic room, so it was hard for me to get the snowballs up there because I'm old and my arm hurts. Yeah. But so we entice him out. So then it's all of us whipping snow at each other. And then the neighbor kids heard us, and they all came over. So it was like a fucking Leave It to Beaver scene in my backyard.
Did Billy come over?
Billy came over, yeah.
He's the kid that runs around in his underwear.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah, all times of the year.
Yeah.
Did I tell you what happened to me? I had speaking of Billy, it was 2 weeks ago. It was one of those 10-degree days. Yeah. And the FedEx guy comes up to the front door, and he knocks on the door, and he doesn't have a package. He goes, listen, I just want you to know that there's a Did I tell the story already?
I think you did.
Oh, shit. There's a kid running up and down the street in his underwear.
Yes. Yes.
And it was Billy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have a big snowball fight in the backyard. And until Ben took a snowball from one of the other neighbor kids in the side of the head, it like,
ooh, yeah.
It looked like it was like 30 miles an hour. And he dropped like a sack of old potatoes. And I had to dig the snow out of his ear. And then he freaked out and started. So, but at least I was able to enjoy the snowball fight. It was great.
That's cool. And our kids hung out virtually.
Mm-hmm. They did. They were on it for hours and hours the other day.
Yeah, I'm very careful not to interfere with, Noah wanting to like play with the kid. Because if I say, oh, great, then he won't.
Right.
So they did it on their own.
Let it go.
Trying not to push them. It was a lot of fun. And I'm just, grateful. I mean, the only thing is that my car battery died.
Oh, yes.
So the day of the snowstorm, my Honda Civic, it's a little car, 2012. It runs fairly well. And I haven't had trouble before with the battery. But Friday I was going to go out to get some wood and stuff, and it didn't start. Called AAA. They came, jumped my car. It was fine. 2 days it was fine. This morning, the morning of the show, it didn't start. Yeah. So I let Mike know, and he came right away. So it's like you're like a real friend now. Like that's friend
friends do.
Yeah, you guys. This is no longer one of these surface friendships that we just sort of. We're not okay. Once you jump a guy's car for him, that's it. So now we're like official real friends.
And then you showed me your guitars.
Right. Oh, yes. That was the coolest part.
It was nice. It was a pleasant morning that I should have been working. But
that was a lot of fun. Mike came in, and I'm like, oh, you got to see. And then I showed him where I want to move our studio to once the store closes, because that's another story. We're looking at closing. But when it does, we need a new place for our studio.
Right.
Oh, and I showed...
that's a nice room. I think it'll be a good space.
Yeah, and I would just like to point something out. I was showing you my amp. Right. And the first thing you said was, oh, it's a PV. And I know what you're thinking, though.
Because I used to have one of those solid-state PVs in the 80s.
Listen, I said the same thing because I'm a guitar snob, and a PV doesn't usually... represent the best of anything. I had a solid state PV too, but this is different because it's a custom. Like it was the Eddie Van Halen model, right? It used to be the 5150, and this is.
Did he play PVs? I thought he played Marshalls.
He's a PV guy, and this was his amp. So I tried it out, and it was it was like $1,200 or something. I mean, it was expensive, And it's a tube.
Those tube amps are pricey.
I only do tube. Solid.
Well, they sound much better.
Solid state's for the birds, man.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun. It was cool. So we hung out. I offered him salmon roe on crackers, and not interested.
Graciously declined.
It's really good.
I like salmon roe, but maybe not at that moment.
I didn't think I would eat it for breakfast until I did.
Really?
That's like
and now that's all you eat?
No.
So you have cats following you around?
I do have cats following me around, by the way.
You do?
Stray cats. We've been feeding these stray cats outside. We've named them. There's 7 of them.
Oh, shit, dude.
And our indoor cat goes nuts.
That's going to be like 21 of them before you know it.
They're so cute. And we got so worried about them during the snowstorm. They went under our deck, and we could still see them from the window well. Mm-hmm. So I put food in there. There's like a big daddy that's like the size of like a bobcat. And then there's the Russian blue cat. His name is Vladimir. There's 2 black cats. I call them Hocus Pocus and Midnight. The mama cat, her name is Mittens. And then Rocky has a chopped off ear.
So it's one female?
We think. I haven't checked between their legs, though.
I don't know. When you named him Rocky, I assume you noticed if he had a dick or anything.
I just assumed. I did not see cat penis.
Seriously, you got to be careful. My father had cats like that. He started feeding 5, and by the time he moved to Florida, there were 23 cats on the front.
Holy crap.
He was buying Costco giant bags of cat food.
We're doing the same thing.
Yeah. Be careful, man. So eventually my sister, who's a vet tech, rounded up all the females and had them fixed, so the population stayed stable in the 20s.
My understanding is that because we talk to our neighbors on Facebook, there's like a neighbors group, and one of our neighbors knows all about these cats, and she's actually gotten the mom spayed.
Oh,
so they're like our whole neighborhood.
Okay.
Is like taking care of these cats.
Good.
Like there's a shed that one of the other neighbors has that they go in, so maybe that'll indemnify us from that kind of.
What's a fancy legal word you're using there?
Indemnify. In order to be remunerated, you must be indemnified.
Wow. Right.
In the aforementioned... See, I told you I should go to law school.
Yeah, sure. Have at it.
I'm thinking about it. I'm going to graduate college, guys, this spring. I started my new class this morning on Wednesday, and it's American literature, realism, impressionism. It's one class, and I, at 42, after years of chipping away at this degree, while I raised a family, while I, started and stopped various businesses. I just kept at it, and I'm very excited. But
that's awesome.
I don't know what to do with my life. Like my wife's like, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And
I hate that question.
Like, what should I do? What should I do?
I don't know.
You tell me.
Oh, that's too much of a responsibility. I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah,
I could. You know what the law is like. Your parents are lawyers.
I know.
You want to do that?
Kind of not.
I don't know.
All right.
Let's think about that.
Let's get on to the meat of the show, guys. The meat. So a couple of things.
I think we found out where that screw goes.
A couple of things that I was thinking about over the past week in my research and studies of addiction. The idea of abuse. And now we've talked about trauma and abuse a lot lately. But what we haven't mentioned was like self-abuse. Like you were being abused by like your addict self.
Yes.
And just kind of thinking about it in those terms. Like it's a completely different person. And I have all these horrible memories that have been coming up lately while I'm driving, just remembering flashes of things that happened to me when I was using, near death experiences. I mean, I'd never had a white light thing, but like where I almost got killed, like my OD, like when I flipped a car,
right?
Just stuff like that. Almost getting creamed trying to run across Hempstead Turnpike, at 3 a.m. All of that stuff, and just it's blowing my mind, thinking of yourself like as two people.
Yeah,
but
you know what they say, Nat? Yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. Today's
history, and if you have one foot in yesterday,
wait,
because it's
that's
called
why
the
they
present.
call it the present,
right?
Right. I heard that in AA.
If you have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, you're shitting on the present.
That one I never heard. I like that one. But so who was that person, right? Who was the person that did all that stuff? Was it you? Or was it an exaggerated facsimile of your worst characteristics? Is that what that was?
Yeah, I mean, that is, because that's what we do once we've recovered. And if someone sort of accuses you of doing an addict thing, or like the person treating you like you were the person before,
yes,
you're supposed to say, that's not me anymore.
Right.
Like that was a different person. I've made amends. Hopefully you make amends for that.
Yeah.
And then you're allowed to move on.
I mean, what makes up a person though? Right. Like, is it
your consciousness?
Yeah.
And
so was that you, or was that just your brain operating on bad intel? Like, you back to the cognitive behavioral therapy, right? I mean, all those thoughts, all those ideas you had about the things that you were doing that were not right, Right.
And you can liken that to what goes on in politics when people get, I won't say what, but when people get false information that they believe, it creates it's very difficult to undo that.
Except nobody agrees what false information is these days.
Which is really, awful, because there is right and there is wrong. I am not a moral relativist. Under any circumstances, anywhere, by anyone, there are things that are wrong.
Well, but there's definitely two different ways of seeing the world, right? Seeing society, you can see it as an individualistic, that we're based in a sort of a libertarian model of individualism, or we're more collectivist, and that we operate together to achieve a common goal. And I think the fact that those two worldviews are so in opposite means it's very hard to reconcile them.
Interesting. I mean, yeah.
I don't know what that has to do with recovery, but it's something I've been thinking about because I've been arguing with Dimitri about this for weeks now.
And what is his take on it?
His current take is that he's a libertarian, but believes in Marxist economics. He believes that you should keep capitalism, but just have the workers running the factories, so to speak.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm thinking I could just keep pushing him a little bit.
Well, yeah.
He'll go full Marxist.
Yeah, he's headed in that direction.
But he also thinks that the New York Times is fake news, so...
Yeah, but like the bad intel, that's stinking thinking, which is something we hear in recovery a lot. When I was in rehab, they make you take these classes, quote unquote, and one of them had a title which was stinking thinking.
Right.
And I remember thinking how annoying that was to me. They're just a name. But
wait, so what does that mean though? Like you were annoyed by the concept of stinking thinking. The concept of stinking thinking was what? Everything the way that you think. The way that you thought, the way that you viewed the world, the assumptions that you had in your head were wrong, right?
Wrong, bad intel. I was going to get a definition of. Is there a definition of stinking?
I don't know. If there was, I've forgotten it. But I mean, wouldn't that make like the world's biggest cognitive behavioral therapy program? Because the whole idea is to change your stinking thinking into less stinking thinking.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I found...
I hate saying stinking thinking.
Yeah, it's the worst. I found something on stinking thinking on Google, and it says there's the top 10 types. I'll read a couple. Stinking thinking. 1, all or nothing thinking. 2 is overgeneralization. 3, mental filter. 4, discounting the positive. 5. Okay, jumping to conclusions.
Right.
So by projecting negativity, basically.
Yes.
I could never get clean. I could never do this.
Right.
You know.
So it's all about rewiring your brain into getting out of those thought patterns into better ones, which is very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy, except AA has the spiritual overlay. Mm-hmm. So,
I think it's
and you use the spirit to change the thinking, right?
Right.
You're waiting for that moment of not clarity. You're waiting for the, what do you call it? What did Bill W. take all that LSD to encourage?
To get to the fourth dimension?
Yes, but to have a spiritual awakening,
right,
so to speak. Mm-hmm. So the awakening is what's supposed to change the stinking thinking.
That's interesting. Right? That reminds me of another thing that they say, which is move a muscle, change a thought. Change your actions.
Right.
And even if you don't believe in what you're doing, you change those actions, mm-hmm, and your thinking does change. It's called acting as if, we say.
Fake it till you make it is the other way to say that.
And from what I've heard from different AA speakers and what I've read, people will often point to, I didn't know why I was doing it. I didn't necessarily agree, but I just did what they told me, and eventually your thoughts changed, which also sounds like cult.
That's not
programming.
That's non-thinking. That's replacing your thinking with others people's thinking.
But that's what they tell you to do. They say, because your best thinking, you'll hear this a lot, your best thinking got you where you are.
Or
that's what they say.
Or maybe your best not thinking got you where you were. Because if you really thought about it, would you have ended up in that place?
I don't know.
If you had perfect clarity, you wouldn't have gone down that road.
We'd like to think that.
Yeah, I'd like to keep some agency. It's my belief that people are ultimately responsible for themselves.
They are. Now, I was just listening to a book by Tracy Helton Mitchell called The Big Fix, which she's well known in recovery, and we've mentioned her before. In harm reduction. She's very outspoken. She was in an HBO documentary, I think it was 1997, called Black Tar Heroin, when she was in
catchy title.
Yeah. And she was one of the worst. She was in the worst possible place. She was streets, the whole thing. And now she is this, I'm trying to get her on, by the way. Mm-hmm. She actually wrote me back and is going to listen to the podcast. And she was saying, she was, reading off all of these studies and things like that. And one of them was 1 out of 8 people, if they use an addictive substance, will get addicted.
Right.
I don't have...
That was Dr. Mate also had that stat in his book.
Yeah, but she also had some really, encouraging statistics where she said this study showed that it was 50% of people who get a year clean will maintain their sobriety.
For how long? Indefinitely?
Yeah, indefinitely.
50%.
She says 50.
Who get a year.
Right.
By any means.
Yes. She also says that most people get clean on their own, which I don't know if I agreed with that. I don't know.
I think 80%
those people don't report it, right?
Well, I don't know how they collect those statistics. I mean, how do they collect the statistics about the success rate of AA?
But it's all, volunteer based studies where they get people that agree to report to them and stuff like that. She also said that people who stayed clean for 5 years, only 15% relapse ever.
So wait, after 1 year, you have a 50-50 shot?
According to her study. Yeah.
In 5 years, you have an 85% shot of staying clean.
Right. So, I mean,
okay.
That's one of those things. It's like they tell...
But by 5 years, your brain is so rewired into being like not engaged with drugs or alcohol why would you ever go back? I'm sorry, I'm just talking my head off today.
Yeah, please go on.
But then you hear all the stories of I guess that's the 15% of people who have 25 years, 30 years, and all of a sudden they just get a case of the fuckets and they're out there,
Yeah. I think it says a lot to change it, move a muscle, change a thought, change your thoughts, and change the way you move. If your thinking changes, your actions will change. So it's just a game we're playing between our thoughts and our actions.
Right. Well, people are very good at rationalizing and justifying.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like that's stinking thinking right there. But, if you pull back and you take 35,000 foot view and you sort of look at the way your mind's operating as if it's not your mind but somebody else's, I think it's pretty easy to see when you're rationalizing.
But it took me a long time to get to a place where I could recognize it.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's easy to do that, but
I was lying so much when I was by the end, I was lying so much that I even believed my lies. Mm-hmm. Like I would lie myself into a state where I literally thought it was true. And and I did that so I could argue better and look more convincing.
Right.
Like that was a method.
I remember thinking that, when I was wandering up in the blizzards to go buy crack, that was perfectly logical, and everybody that thought I should be doing something else didn't know what they were talking about.
That is it. And so it's very hard to break through to someone like that. And I think that's why, and a lot of us get there. I think that's why a lot of people think that you have to hit rock bottom, because the person has to feel so uncomfortable or so, it has to get so bad for some people that's the only thing that can change them around. So,
well, some people don't need that.
Right. Which is what, some of the new recovery work that's coming out is focusing more on that, more on looking at the person who has to have a glass of wine every day after work. And, it's not a ton of drinking, but they got to have it. And it's bad for them. It increases. So why are you doing it? You know what I mean? And so maybe reaching out to those people before you get this whole class of citizens who's, like basically addicts, we're a lower class of citizen. And so much of that has to do with the anonymous factor going on. And that's what that documentary Anonymous People is all about. That, yes, we understand that anonymity is part of our traditions and 12-step, and it must be adhered to. But then there's this argument that we can't advocate for, like, as a voter bloc. Right. Unless we step out of this anonymity and advocate for recovery, and that these are people, they're not, just junkies, and they could offer value to society, and we should, look at this from a healthcare perspective more than a criminal perspective, and really and get lobbying.
But it's a chicken and egg situation, because as long as society still treats anybody with a substance abuse problem as somehow lesser of a person,
morally bankrupt,
then who of the gray area drinkers who maybe are having too much wine every night wants to throw themselves in with that lot?
Nobody.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, how long did I keep using or drinking because I had to say to myself, I'm not that guy in the trench coat under the bridge. Right. I'm not that addict with the white kid with dreadlocks and a ripped fish shirt, with a tent outside in a city and like flying signs. I'm like, I'm not that. Right. And I'm also not that 12-step douchebag guy who just makes me cringe every time he opens his mouth and holds the book up, you know?
Right.
And then but the bottom line is that you don't have to be any of those things.
You don't.
You just be yourself and you stay clean, and, you know, don't get caught up in all that bullshit. It's easier said than done.
It is, but I think it would do society a great favor if we could, people who are not quite at the living under the bridge stage could avail themselves of some of these recovery resources without having to, you know, join the legion of the great bottomed out people. You know, by making people wait until they have a bottom, it's so much wasted time and effort and energy and lives. You know,
money. I mean, even if you want to talk money,
well, it's an industry, right?
But think of all the lost revenue that there is because of people being high. There's numbers for that too. How they figure that out, maybe when it gets reported, but it makes people work less. It's just, you know, it's a pariah on society, but. There's too much money in it. You know?
There is a lot of money in it.
But besides that, I have been playing lotto.
Lotto.
And
getting that little dopamine spike.
I'm not a lotto guy, and I don't do gambling. It's just not for me. It never has been. But the other day, somebody in our town won $5 million at the 7-Eleven. Yeah.
What?
It was big news. Everybody was talking about it.
Do we know who it was?
We don't. But and I was like, oh, I'm going to play. Well, I'll just do one. It's 10. I put $10 in. I got, you know, a bunch of quick pick numbers. And when it came up on the TV, I got this like excitement. I immediately started planning what I would do with the money.
Right.
Of course, like I'll do that and I'll give money to this.
Right.
And, you know, and the numbers were read and I was there checking my numbers and reading it. And I won $7.
Ooh.
And man, I got this feeling. And the next time it came up, what do you think I did? I was buying a coffee and I was like, give me 10 quick picks on all right. Same thing. Next night, I'm sitting there, I get the same feeling. And I did it a third time. I won $10. But I had to step back and look at this from an addiction perspective, because I see everything through an addiction perspective. I can't help it.
Yes.
So I'm looking at this behavior and I'm like, red flag.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's absolutely a red flag. I think, have you ever been to that same 7-Eleven and watched any of the guys buying the scratch-offs?
Yeah.
So
it's bad.
Yeah, it was an old guy the other day. He had on his Vietnam veteran hat and whatnot, and just kept buying and buying and buying and holding up the line, which was annoying. But I'm watching him.
I hate that. Yeah.
And you know, the fervor he's putting into scratching those little things off with a quarter, to me, it's just, you know, he could have been in an alley with a stem. It looked no different to me. And I'm very careful when it comes to gambling. I was never a big gambler because it was always too exciting for me. Like the times I've been to Vegas for work or whatever, and you know, you end up you know, with slot machines or playing some blackjack or something, and then drinking at the same time, which was my experience. So it was like a double dopamine hit, and that's what it is. It's like giving you that juice every time. I mean, we played the lotto a little bit the last month just because, like, I think one of the jackpots
got up to $1 billion.
Was $1 billion, and you're like, okay, I'm going to try for $1 billion, right? Aaron had already saved like 5 villages in Africa before the drawing, but I don't fuck with it because I know if I get into it, I'll really get into it.
Yeah, we should. I've got a buddy, David M, on Dopey Nation, who I've learned a lot about gambling addiction because he's a member of the Dopey Nation as an addict, like the rest of us.
Right,
but his angle is he's addicted to gambling. And what's amazing is how much I can relate to the things he says about gambling, and how much he can relate to the things I say about drinking or alcohol. And there's like a real camaraderie there. We're both like dealing with pretty much the same problem.
Yes,
and it's really interesting.
Gambling, it's a lot quicker to financial ruin. The guys that I've known who have been in GA, like, have stories that, you think like some of these drug stories or something, but these are guys that go and they put their house deed down, and all of a sudden they got to come home and tell their wives they don't have a house anymore.
Yeah, and who's worse, like a drug dealer coming after you, or one of these mafia, like the bank, or like the mafia?
Right.
Hey, Johnny Numbers, I want to bet on that horse.
Yeah,
and Johnny Numbers, you don't pay him.
I tell you, I came close on Lotto once. My father used to play, although it's funny. I always remember as a kid, he kept his Lotto tickets, the non-winners, for some reason. He had a stack of them that was like 3 inches thick.
The non-winners.
Desk. And like they were all non-winners, right? So, he was like, why don't you, and I was getting on him about it. He's like, why don't you try playing it? And I'm like, I was like 16 or 17, and I was like, sure. So I just go in and I must have been 18, right? Because you can't do it under 18. So I go in and I just quick pick the numbers. And he's like, no, you have to, he's like, you have to take care in picking the numbers. Like, pick birth dates and whatever. I'm like, fuck it, I don't care. So I got 4 out of 6 maybe numbers.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
First time I ever did it, more than he ever got in 20 years of playing. I won $50.
$50.
$50. This is back when the jackpot was $1 million.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be
so I don't know. It's but the gambling has come up a lot lately in my mind, not only because of like these giant jackpots and lottery, which is essentially a regressive tax on the poor. People who can least afford it, and they just dangle the promise of riches in front of them, and people are out there,
a regressive tax on the poor. I love that.
Well, I mean,
that's poetry, Mike.
Yeah.
That's
I wish I could say I coined that phrase, but I did not. But I mean, you see what's been going on all week with GameStop and Wall Street Bets.
What is going on? In case our listeners haven't seen it.
Okay. So I don't know. If people know about Reddit, it's a social media group. And there's different subreddits for different topics.
It's like it's a social network that's more anonymous.
Right. Exactly. So there's one famous one called Wall Street Bets, and it's mostly young guys in there, mostly guys. And what they do is they'll pick a certain stock and they'll try and, I don't know if they're trying to run it up because that would be illegal, but everybody piles into one stock and they argue with each other about how, why they should all do this. So they figured out that GameStop, this one guy called UFuckingValue, that's his username, decided that the GameStop was undervalued. And he decided this, about a year ago. He bought like a few thousand shares, and they just kept talking it up in the forum, and all of a sudden more and more people started buying it. And then they realized that there were all these hedge funds that had a short position on it, which means they were betting that the stock would go down. Mm-hmm. So they figured they could drive the stock up, cash out at the top, and for arcane Wall Street reasons, that I'm not going to explain here, the hedge funds would have to buy the stock at the inflated price to cover the bet that they made that it would go down.
Okay, you definitely lost me, but I think I understand what you're saying.
So,
and we've lost our listeners.
Sorry, you asked me to explain it.
All right.
So basically, this forum, this internet forum, went from about 1 million people to 7 million people within a week, and all of these people piled in and just started buying stock.
Wow.
Because there was this get-rich-quick mentality, and the company that facilitates this is a company called Robinhood. And Robinhood is a trading platform.
Like E-Trade?
Yeah, it's like E-Trade, exactly. But
they're a Ponzi scheme, I heard. They can't cover the money that has been...
Yes, that's an issue.
That's another thing. Go ahead.
But Robinhood has been marketing to millennials and Gen Zs by creating an app that you can use in your phone to buy stock that is very reminiscent of what slot machines do to entice you in Las Vegas.
I kind of want to get it now that that we've looked at it. It sounds awesome.
So when you download the app for the first time, you get an image of a digital scratch-off lottery ticket that pops up on your screen, and that picture is a welcome stub. It's a gift for joining the Robinhood community. So it promises you a free share of stock worth anywhere from $2.50 to $200. So if the new trader wants the prize, they have to play by scratching off the image like a lottery ticket. And so, that immediately triggers a dopamine response among their new users. And the trigger is what keeps people coming back, because not only do that, but they also do like green confetti to celebrate a transaction when you make a transaction, constant update of stock related articles.
That's the GameStop stock?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just showing him. Yeah, it goes straight up.
Yeah. Well, except it's also gone straight down. So you get free stocks in the shape of lottery tickets. You get wait lists for buying certain things where you can improve your position by tapping it up to 1,000 times a day. I mean, it's all like very, very Las Vegas in its approach to getting people to bet. So, to trade. So something I also thought interesting was in that same article, they interviewed a guy who ran the 1-800 gambling helpline, who said that it was rare 10 years ago to ever get a call about people in the stock market. But ever since the Robinhood app has made its appearance on the scene, they get like 10% of their calls are about people that are just addicted to stock trading.
Day trading?
Yeah,
wow.
it's day trading. So
that's interesting. I mean,
full disclosure, I went out and I bought 10 shares of GameStop.
$74 a share right now.
Yeah, well,
what'd you get it at $5?
No, I got it like 200. So I lost a shitload of money. But the thing that I noticed is that excitement from the Wall Street bets and all following the ticker up and down all day long is infectious, because that same week I started looking at other stocks, and I was just, and I'm when I invest, right, I'm a buy and hold guy. I'll pick a good company. I'll say this one's going to be great in 5 years and hang on to it. Last week, after I got this GameStop thing and watching it jerk up and down, the potential for great riches and striking it rich quick, I ended up buying like 4 or 5 other meme stocks, as they call them, and riding them up and down. And I'd swear it was just like an addiction, an addictive feeling.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So I sold them all.
Yeah,
all the ones that I bought at a loss, most of them, but not a big loss.
So
just like a couple $100. No, but because I was like, I'm not going down this rabbit hole, because if I do, I'm going to bankrupt my family within short order, because I could see where that was going. So I don't know. So if you're out there playing the stock market with Robinhood or doing any of this Wall Street bets, folks, you just watch yourself, because I don't see much difference between that and other forms of addiction.
Yeah, I got into that
behavior,
and I definitely agree with you, because I've experienced it. Just before the pandemic, my friend Mikey Clams, who's the local clammer, is an old friend of mine from my addiction days. What?
Is it just you that calls him Mikey Clams, or is that his actual?
I think I coined it because when I refer him to friends, because he delivers clams,
right,
I say, Mikey Clams. So before I started it, nobody else called him Mikey Clams. Right. But Mikey Clams, real blue collar, great guy. His clams are amazing, and he was just clams are amazing is not a euphemism.
Yeah, all right.
But he's funny, because, man, back in the day in this town, he had a party apartment in town. And after we partied at the local towny bar, got some blow, went back up to the apartment over that building over there. Okay. His apartment and my friend, I'll call him E's apartment, were next to each other. And it was just debauchery, just like partying, and just the weirdest people would come into that party. You would have remember Cracky? She used to work at Stop and Shop. She would show up. She was just one of these weird townies.
Okay.
People like John the Can Man would show up.
Right.
And then, it was such a weird crew. And anyway, so Mikey Clams was one of the guys that we were hanging out with. And me and my wife used to go hang out there together. So it wasn't just me. Right. You know what I mean? And so he came in, and now he's clean pretty much now. He's not into all that. He's just he works hard, and he's got 2 kids. So he's like, yo, you buy stocks. And I'm like, no, I don't do any of that anymore. And he gave me this stock tip on 1-800-Flowers, and he was so excited about it. And he was telling me about the reports and when it goes up and how much he's made on it. I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get an E-Trade account. I put like $800 into it. No, nothing major, just to play around.
Right.
And I'm up, a lot based on Mikey Clams' recommendations.
Mikey Clams, stockbroker Mikey Clams.
But I was doing the same thing. I was watching it every day. I bought a book on swing trading so I could understand how to read the reports, like the stochastic thing and all of that stuff. So I got really interested in it. I watched a few tutorials on Amazon's videos, guy describing how to read, and I got that feeling too. Ultimately, the COVID hit. And I couldn't keep putting money in it. So I've left it there, and it's still up miraculously.
What's the secret to 1-800-Flowers? Cyclical?
Yeah. He's got it. He's like, listen, holidays where flowers are sold. It's that simple.
Right.
But you have to watch it, and you can just go by date. But if you pay attention to what's happening in the news related to it, like he's got a whole system based on that. And ADPN is another weird stock. They make microprocessors. AMD is another one.
None of this should be construed as financial or investing advice.
Thank you. That was a report from legal, but we are running long.
We are.
So I'm going to say we want to get to recovery in the news. We've got... Yeah.
So I don't know if any of the listeners remember, or any is still listening, but if they remember, we discussed Oregon's ballot initiative back around election time, and just before that, they were legalizing drugs, including small varieties of all kinds of drugs. Right?
What's the title of this article?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Oh, go.
It's this is an article from the Salem Reporter, and the article's title is "The State is to Pour Millions More into Addiction Treatment Despite Little Proof That It Works." So I was just giving some what I call context.
I'm sorry. I should just
background.
I need to stop talking. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Stay back.
So Oregon passed a ballot initiative where they legalized possession of small amounts of all different kinds of drugs, including meth and cocaine and all the other goodies. Right. And of course, marijuana's been legal there. So the Salem Reporter did this in-depth report recently that they're part of the legalization quid pro quo was that a significant amount of the money that was raised or saved was going to be funneled into treatment, right? For the new drug addicts that are created by the legalization of drugs. It was called Measure 110, and it decriminalized the use of all these drugs, and instead people could go and get treatment. And it could move thousands of people into a system that is apparently already clogged and lacking any evidence that it's effective.
But they're decriminalizing. What does that mean exactly? Because people get confused when they hear decriminalized. Right. They think I can go get an 8-ball at 7-Eleven.
No, that's legalized.
Right.
Decriminalized just means that you can't be sent to jail for it. Up to certain amounts.
So it doesn't make it easier to get. It just makes you less likely to go to jail for it.
Right. I mean, weed you can buy at the 7-Eleven or whatever, the dispensary.
And one quote from the article says, "No reliable outcomes data exist on the effectiveness of treatment or how well the services worked to reduce clinical symptoms and enhance quality of life," the State Criminal Justice Commission reported. So they're saying that they need more hard data, that, they don't have enough hard data.
Yes. And the corollary to that was that they said it was hard to document that treating addictions help reduce crimes that had to be handled by the police and the courts. I mean, one would expect that. But then again, the measure was only passed 3 months ago. So it's a little hard to be extracting data from that about the success of the program. But then again, okay, so how do you measure success?
Yeah, see, we talked about this a lot. You said 1 day out of 30 instead of 2 days, you're doing good.
And then the article goes on to say Narcotics Anonymous emphasizes abstinence.
Right.
But there's also a growing focus on reducing, not eliminating harm as a goal, such as getting people to use less often or in lower amounts. So how do you determine whether treatment is a success if it's based on a model of abstinence and people are not abstaining, even though if they're doing less of the drug? Is that a failure or is that a success under this framework?
I think the unwillingness to go away from total abstinence for some kind of recovery is just laziness, because it's so easy to just say stop everything and that's the only thing we'll accept, because that's easy. You've got an easy measuring stick and you've got millions of people. But the truth is that each person is really going to have different responses and needs. So I think that's just simply a function of convenience, why a lot of these programs are sticking to abstinence. Because once you get into harm reduction and saying, you know what, we want to say that you're doing well. We're not going to throw you back on the street if you have a drink or something in the middle. We're working with getting you less likely to die, kill someone, get AIDS or Hep C or whatever and spread it. We're reducing harm. We're taking, but the problem is that's like really hard to measure.
It's hard to measure.
So how do you come up with a standardized measurement tool for success when people aren't standardized?
I mean, you could look at days of sobriety, not necessarily linear, like, in a month, 5 days of sobriety, 10 days, something like that. Or you could look at it on the other end, which is the effects on society, car accidents, crimes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. A worker at an office who is using heroin illicitly compared to that same worker who is going to methadone treatment only is going to be a better worker, And once they get on a methadone program or Suboxone, it then becomes easier for their point of contact, the doctors, the social workers because when you get methadone, you're supposed to also get a social worker,
right,
and work on it, and a doctor who's prescribing it. So it just, it gradually eases a person into a place where they can make a rational decision for their life and say, well, I'm on a very low dose of Suboxone. I'm going to my doctor, every 2 weeks. I'm going to my group therapies. And your life is turned around. Maybe you got back together with your wife or whomever, and your life is stable. You're not talking to the dealers. You don't associate with your old friends who call the dealers, and then you can make that decision with your doctor, with your partner, with your family to say, either I'm not ready to stop taking Suboxone right now, and that's okay, and I won't be ostracized for it, and I'm not going to lie about it in my groups, in my 12-step, because I'm recovered. I'm in recovery. My life is so much better, but I'm still maintaining my, medication-assisted treatment. And when you're ready to come off of that, you do that. But in the meantime, I see so many people who they post on these addiction groups, and they're so distraught because they've been going, they turn their whole life around. They're not buying heroin. They're going to their NA meetings, but they're using the medication-assisted treatment, and they're made to feel like they're not as sober as the other people. And
that's horrible.
Listen, I think that's bullshit, because for me, recovery is more about quality of life than anything else.
Absolutely.
What is your life like? If I asked your partner or your mother, how's he doing?
Right.
That's a good measure. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, ask my wife.
Well, let me ask you this, though. We talked early in the show about changing your subconscious, to the point where now all of a sudden you're looking at substance abuse in an entirely different way. Do you think that if you were still on Suboxone, you would be able to do that?
To look at life in a different way?
To look at substances as I really have no interest in using that.
Yeah, 100%.
As opposed to...
Why not? I'll tell you what, the only reason I know that for sure is I was there.
Right.
Toward the end.
So you weren't afraid, like, if you got off Suboxone, the craving would come back?
So the answer to that is, yeah, there's always some fear.
Right.
But I wasn't buying Suboxone illicitly and trying to wean myself off. Like many people try to do. They fail, and then they say, oh, it's bullshit. It doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't work, because you weren't under her doctor's care, which is what needs to be. You need to be with your therapist, have these discussions with your sponsor or whomever.
Right.
And so that's just what I did. I was on 2 years on my Suboxone, and from a 5-year heroin addiction. And but my life was completely different. The only thing I was doing was once a month I'd go to the doctor and would ask me what we wanted to do this month. Am I coming down? Tell him how I feel. And then I was in AA, and we dropped it down, and then I'd report my feelings. I'd tell my therapist, I don't know if I can come off of this. I'm worried.
Right.
And we talk about it. You work it out in group. You know what I mean? And you do that work. I did that work. And when I came off of it, I was clean for 6 months. I was clean for 6 months, and then I picked up drinking. And that's, there's a number of reasons why that happened. But it did happen, and that got me into my DW. That's where the DWI happened. Right. I was drinking to replace the feeling. So I guess I wasn't ready at that point. I had a lot more to go through. But the Suboxone, it saved my life.
It is such a complicated issue in terms of, I certainly think medical assisted treatment is like a lifesaver for so many people.
It really is. And now, does it get abused? Of course. Everything gets abused somehow. Yes, it's sold illicitly. Suboxone can be injected. But you know what? Anybody can abuse anything. Like you can abuse non-alcoholic beer.
Watch it.
When I said that, I really meant you. You, Mike, can abuse non-alcoholic beer.
You know what I did the other day? And it was funny. I cooked a vegan sausage in a non-alcoholic beer. I was like, this is what my life has come to. I used to cook some bratwurst and some sauerkraut, and you'd pour in a stout, and now it's like a vegan sausage with non-alcoholic honey.
Oh God, that sounds so sterile.
It was actually not bad. I like that vegan sausage sometimes. It's good for the heart, if not the stomach.
Mike loves his vegan sausage. Is that a euphemism? Oh man, this is painful.
Yeah, it is. That's the end of that.
Yeah.
Just moving things along. Oh, one thing before you go on to Week in Weird. So yesterday I had to meet Erin because she was getting her second shot for COVID, the COVID vaccine, and I was in Mineola. And I sent you a picture of a bar. And so I thought that just bared mentioning because here I am. I'm taking a picture. I'm walking by the train station, and there's a hospital in the area is like the big employer, and there's like a whole bunch of buildings in this hospital complex. And right smack in the middle of the hospital complex is a bar called the Recovery Room. And I sent it to you to be sort of like make a wry comment about alcoholism and health. And you were like, hey, I used to smoke crack in that bathroom.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, okay, you're familiar with the place.
And I was aware of the irony of the name of the bar.
Right. I assume everybody that goes in there is, has a chuckle about that as they're drinking. But
so let me take you back. You're not in a hurry, are you?
No.
Okay. Let me take you back. So I don't know how many years ago this was. Could be 5, could be 4 years. I was court mandated, as many of you know from my DWI, to attend outpatient treatment for drugs and or alcohol. What that means is you go to groups, you discuss. It's with professionals. You have a professional group leader and then drug addicts, and they test you all the time. And if you piss dirty, I would go to jail because I was on probation. So I was at a point where I had relapsed a bunch of times, and this was my 3rd or 4th outpatient. So this was the end of the line for me. If I didn't complete at in Seafield, Mineola, I would never get my driver's license back ever.
Man.
And my wife would leave me, and my whole life would just be dissolved into a horror show if I didn't complete that. That's the way I felt, and even if it wasn't true. So at the time, I didn't have a car because when I crashed it. This is after the DWI. I crashed it and I was sober. Incidentally, I crashed it on my way to outpatient therapy, leaving my job early, and I was calling the place to tell them I was running late. And I looked up and bam, and I totaled the car. And the rule is I had a breather, like one of those, what do you call them, where you have to breathe into
to the steering wheel thing?
If you have one of those and you get a moving violation, your license is gone.
Even if you don't blow anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's terribly unfair.
So that was 3 years ago, and I lost my driving privileges completely. Even, so now I was walking everywhere. My parents were driving me, which was a nightmare. I love them, but to be 40 years old and sitting in the back of your parents' car, is nothing worse. It is demoralizing and embarrassing and everything you can imagine. So I used to have to walk to the train in this town, sit there for 50 minutes, go to the train station in Mineola, and walk to Seafield, which is a few blocks. Now, when you get out of the train, the bar is there.
It's right there.
Recovery room. And if I was there at group on a Thursday or Friday, and I was walking back to get on the train, sometimes I would have crack. Sometimes I would just drink, but I would go into the recovery room, order a couple drinks, go in the bathroom, spark a pipe, and then I had a few days to clear out, to not piss dirty, and with the hope that they won't test me Monday because they would randomly do it during the week. So that was the life I was living.
Recovery room there's 2 layers of puns in there. Like, is this like the normal recovery room is the room in the hospital you go to after the surgery, and it's also where you go after you attend your recovery meetings. So, oh, wow.
I think they call it the recovery room because of the hospital.
Yeah, because
because of Seafield.
Right, I know, but the picture on it is of like an EKG running across the...
That's a new sign, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, the owner of that bar is really nice. I got to know him a little bit. I used to really hang out there. And sometimes I would just skip group.
Right.
And I would get in trouble, of course, and be threatened with all sorts of things. And I was going 5 days a week, but sometimes I would because my wife would think I was at the place, and they didn't talk to her because I didn't sign a release so that they could talk to her.
Yeah.
That's another story. But, I would just say I was going there, and I would just pull it into the recovery room and hang out for a few hours.
Right on the other side of the tracks, there used to be a bar called... the home stretch. It had an OTB thing in it, and so I went to high school in that town, and we used to walk to the train, and the drinking age was 18. We were probably 15. We would go in, it was top of the stretch, that was it. And we would go in there and order like drinks that nobody who was of age would ever order. We'd go like Alabama Slammer, please, and so that was the first place I ever drank in a bar. It was right across the street from that bar.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was also the first dead body I've ever seen.
In Mineola?
Yeah.
Wow.
So one day I was... Well, the other thing that I didn't say about Mineola train station is that probation is also... What is that, north? If you walk the other way from the recovery room. If you walk out of the recovery room and keep going, what direction are you walking? South?
That is south towards the courthouse and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where... probation was, because I'm not felony probation. So some days I would walk... It's like 10 blocks, nearly get killed crossing Old Country Road. And the other way, it was perfect. I had, my outpatient one way, and then for my...
So much going on in Mineola. Anyway, we're running... Do you want to tell the dead body story?
Yeah, one day, because some nights I had probation and I had whatchamacallit.
Yeah.
So I would go to probation first, and then I'd walk all the way. And then one day... I was walking because I had to cross over the train. They have that bridge, right? Cop cars everywhere, just like everything is stopped.
Right.
I was like, what the hell's going on? And I walked up and I looked, and it was a smear. It was just like, that fucked me up, man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was just like what the fuck? Like, it's just nothing prepares you for that, man.
No.
And I thought about that for a long time. And luckily, I was going straight to therapy. So
that was handy.
I brought it up and tried to process it. But, man, that is the saddest thing. If you're in a train town.
People jump in front of the trains all the time. All the time.
It's horrible.
Yep.
It's horrible. So that's Mineola, guys. And great pizza place there, by the way.
Yeah.
So this week in Weird. This week in Weird. This is a repeat of last week. Astronomer Avi Loeb says aliens have visited, and he's not kidding. Avi Loeb is no stranger to controversy. The prolific Harvard University astrophysicist has produced pioneering and provocative research on black holes, gamma-ray bursts, the early universe, and other standard topics of his field. But for more than a decade, he has also courted a more contentious subject, namely space aliens, including how to find them. Until relatively recently, Loeb's most high-profile work in that regard was his involvement with Breakthrough Starshot, a project funded by Silicon Valley billionaire Yuri Milner to send laser-boosted, gossamer-thin, mirror-like spacecraft called light sails on high-speed voyages to nearby stars. All that began to change in late 2017, however, when astronauts around the world scrambled to study an enigmatic interstellar visitor, the first ever seen, that briefly came within range of their telescopes.
Yeah, so
cool.
So he's referring to that thing that looked like they did a representation of what they thought it looked like, and it looks like
a cigar, right?
Cigar or flat rock of some sort. But
it's called like Oumuamua.
Yeah,
or something.
But according to the interview they did with him in the Scientific American article, it didn't really look like that. It was like shiny and had like a smooth shape to it and stuff. So the representation they've been putting out in the public is probably so people think that it's a natural object as opposed to a spacecraft, which he is fairly convinced that it is. Really wild.
Yeah, it was called, here it is, Oumuamua. Oumuamua is the first known interstellar object detected passing through the solar system, formerly designated some crazy number. It was discovered by Robert Work using the Pan-STARRS telescope. So this is a real thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It was in the news. It's this gigantic object.
Yes.
Passing, and they think it's billions of years old, they think. And this guy is saying that it's basically like an ancient spaceship filled with aliens.
The proof to me was that he said that it accelerated in a way that could not be accounted for by the gravitational pulls that were on it at the time. And then once it got to the edge of the solar system, it just like took off like a shot. Yeah.
Wow. And I've been hearing, I've got my finger on the pulse of paranormal radio and UFO stuff. I read books about it. And I listen to shows. I love this stuff. And incidentally, I have been listening over the years to these guys who claim to be secret space program insiders, and nobody really believed them, but I loved listening to it. Yeah. And they said that same thing, man. Really? They said that they were on that ship and they saw, yeah, man.
Okay.
It's freaking great. So this is just more corroboration that I'm right and everyone else is wrong.
There you go.
This Week in Weird. Oh, man, it's been a show. It's been
a long one.
So thanks, everybody, for coming back and listening.
All 5 of you.
Yeah, it was a rough week for me, and I just want to apologize that I haven't been as on top of our marketing. I haven't been on top of stuff. I'm
sure people are disappointed to not be marketed to this week.
Well, I want to be active. I want to be out there. I want to be making memes and communicating with people, and this last week I just got sucked into a time warp, and I apologize for that. There's a few things that we've got coming up that are exciting.
Yes.
If I could just get off my ass. We've got this author coming on. If I can just read this book already. And Erin Moore is working on a really cool segment coming up, so she's going to get like 25 minutes to do her thing and bring the female aspect to it. We've got merch coming. If I could ever get off my ass and order the shirts. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Tweet us at TwatYouTwit, Instagram, Apple Podcast, or wherever great podcasts are sold. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Guys, we need more reviews. Please, 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 please write a cool review so I can read it. Give me 5 stars. We'll read it on the air, middleagesrecovery.com, and submit your story, please. Last thing is I need questions for the cop. So added questions for Sergeant Slaughter, please, guys. I really appreciate it. It'll be really cool. But read it. We'll give your name if you want, and
or not if you don't.
It'll be fun. Yeah. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
Profits, not perfection. I think I'm changing the tagline.
Have a great week, guys.
Be good.